Ladies and gentlemen, this is the ultimate guide to Modern Warfare 3 Zombies. This video is going to cover everything from the basics in terms of how the gameplay works, and is also going to give you a lot of helpful tips to help make your experience as smooth as possible. I'm going to explain how the quests and the tasks and challenges work, as well as progressing through the main quest, how you can survive in the game a bit easier, and so on. Like, we're going to cover absolutely everything in this video. Also, I am going to be doing a giveaway of 2 copies of Modern Warfare 3. If you want to enter, just please leave a like on the video, and make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, leave your gamer tag in the comments and your Twitter handle, as I will be picking the winners over on Twitter. But once you've done all that, you're going to come away from this video understanding exactly how Modern Warfare Zombies looks, because it can be quite intimidating on surface level, and at first glance it may look a little bit too complicated, but I promise you it's absolutely not. The game mode is quite simple. All you need is a basic understanding of the key systems, and I'm also going to give you a few helpful tips as this video goes on and we talk about things. So before we do anything gameplay wise, we need to take a quick look through your settings first. First thing I would recommend you change is your FOV. This is just going to be the way your field of view works in game. I always have mine at 95, but feel free to put yours wherever you want. Now, as far as controller or any input settings, just make sure that it's comfortable for whatever you like to play before you jump into game. And I would also recommend maybe a higher sensitivity than usual for this mode, because it actually is an advantage here specifically, but whatever comfortable sensitivity you like to play, I think is for the best. But I play on 15, whatever you like is fine. The point is just get comfortable with your controller or other input device before jumping into the game. But now we've got your settings sorted out, let's get into our match. Now, as soon as you load up into the lobby, you're going to see a screen like this, and it's also very important that I would highly recommend playing with the squad. You can solo queue or you can autofill, but this game plays much better when you're playing with people that you can talk to and communicate with. I'm just going to point that out. But anyways, let's talk about your basic character system. So right here, first of all, we're going to take a look at your loadout, and these are the weapons you're bringing into the game. Now, these can be selected from the armory that you have or any weapons that you acquire within the match that you may have extracted with. Keep in mind, all of your weapons will be the base rarity once you load into the game, and will of course not be pack-a-punched unless you bring other stuff in, but these are just going to be the base weapons that you are bringing into the match. Secondly, you have your tacticals and lethals right here. These are pretty self-explanatory. Keep in mind, this isn't super important, as you will find a ton of different options for both of these equipments later on in the match itself. And then finally, you have your field upgrade. This is an important pick, as you're not able to swap it mid-match. As far as the field upgrades themselves go right now, Frenzied Guard is an amazing one for solo play, as it restores all of your armor plates upon activation, but it makes all the zombies chase you temporarily. Healing Aura is also extremely good for not only reviving your own squad, but even friendly allies like around you that are not part of your squad, just other people in the match. So both of these are extremely effective. Energy Mine is also fairly solid as well, but I don't think it's the best. Now, coming back, let's take a look at your gear information. This stuff is like, well, whether you either have a large or a small rucksack, something in your kill streak slot, your armor plates, your gas mask, whether you have one or not, and also a self-revive kit. These are basically conditions that your player has applied, and don't worry, these are going to be empty when you first start up the game, but as you go and loot and explore things and acquire items in the match and extract with them, you will be able to keep them until you die. So these are very valuable items, and you want to keep them as long as you possibly can. Now let's move over to the rucksack, and this is what you're bringing into the match when you start. And so there are acquisitions and there are schematics, and I'll go ahead and explain the differences between these two. Acquisitions are, one-time use items that you find in the match. For example, you find a can of Speed Cola, you can either choose to use it then and there on the spot, or you can keep it in the rucksack and use it for another match. Let's say the next game you spawn in, bringing in that same Speed Cola can, you can use that immediately right when you spawn in. And that applies for all of the acquisitions. You can have something like an Ether Tool, which will upgrade the rarity of your weapon, or an Ethereum Crystal, which will pack-a-punch your weapon to a certain level, or even an ammo mod like Dead Wire or Brain Rot that will be applied to your weapon. And again, think of these acquisitions as one-time use items that are consumable, and you can store them all in the rucksack to bring in or out of game, so long as you exfil successfully. Now, it's a little bit different with schematics. If you happen to extract with a schematic, that means you keep that item forever. So let's say you extract with a Brain Rot schematic, that means you can bring an item of Brain Rot in for your weapon all of the time. However, there is a cooldown of a couple of hours, so you cannot use it every single match, but that means that this will be permanently added to your account, and as long as it's cooled down, you can bring Brain Rot in indefinitely. That goes for all of the other schematics as well, including ones for wonder weapons, ray guns, and wonderwaffs included. So in other words, to make it simple, acquisitions are one-time use items in your game, and schematics are basically permanent upgrades to your account that you can pull from so long as they're cooled down. Now that we've got the rucksack and items out of the way, let's actually talk about what you do in-game. So the core concept of the game is pretty simple. You complete contracts in the match, you get things, and then you extract with said things and repeat the process. Now, the challenges you're going to be doing, you may have noticed in your main menu that there is a story down at the bottom right, and you need to do tasks in order to complete this. So you can check your menu to see what tasks you're doing, but in the match itself, you will have something over here in the top left that tells you what challenges you need to do. And these are going to be the same for everybody if you're doing the story missions, and these will have you doing a variety of tasks throughout the world. Now, the way the map is set up is you have 3 different zones. You have your low threat zone, which is the outermost portion here. You have your medium threat zone, which is marked by the yellow, and that's kind of like the, the mid tier. And then you have the hardest zone in the game, which is deep center in the red. And this is also where the most valuable loot is as well. So the main focus is doing these story challenges that you will have over here. This will complete you through Act 1, Act 2, and Act 3. Now, I'm going to let you know right now, it is very, very grindy. Do not expect to do all of these challenges, even in a couple of games. It's going to take you a long time to get through all of these acts. Like, this is no simple feat because it is essentially the main content. Now, these tasks will obviously become more challenging, and there are also side contracts that you can do in the map itself. Now, let me explain how the weapons work, because this is a core fundamental to how you're going to interact with the game. Weapons are very similar to how they operate in Cold War, where they're based on a rarity system. You have your gray, which is like what you spawn in with. You have green, which are your uncommon weapons, blue, which are rare, and then purple and orange. And not only do you get more attachments per each rarity, step up in game, but also the damage that you're going to be outputting between rarity classes is pretty steep. So a blue is going to deal much more damage than a green weapon in general. Now, when it comes to Pack-a-Punch, it's a little bit different. So there is 3 different levels of Pack-a-Punch that's the same. However, the way you acquire them is you need to push into certain zones for that to be possible. So in the low threat zone, you can only upgrade to tier 1. In the medium threat zone, you can upgrade to tier 2, and in the highest threat zone, you can upgrade to tier 3. So ideally, you want a max rarity weapon along with tier 3 Pack-a-Punch if you want to be dealing the maximum amount of damage, but that's, easier said than done, of course. Now, the way the game is set up is you have 1 hour to do whatever you want to do, right? You can wait till the last minute in the final exfil, or you can extract as soon as you want to keep items safe. Obviously, the longer you stay in the game, the longer you're going to have to acquire better and newer materials, push into the high threat zones, and get good loot. So you kind of do want to stay as long as you can, if all possible. However, you can extract at one of these points whenever you want. Looking at the map, it may look a little bit overwhelming or complicated, but there's only a few key things you really need to know about. First of all, you can acquire perks in a bunch of different ways. You can either do some of these contracts, and these will be little tasks and objectives that you can complete, and oftentimes you'll get a free perk given one of those. You can either buy them from machines, or you can acquire them throughout the world loot. There's a bunch of different ways to, obtain these. And as for the rest of the map, these indicators will tell you where a bunch of things are, including the mystery box, obviously nearest Pack-a-Punch machines, wall buys, etc. There is also a couple of different POIs like ether nests and also strongholds from mercenaries. So these will be soldiers that will actually, shoot and fight against you. These are different ways to acquire loot and get challenges done. Depending on your story challenge, you may have to approach one of these, and these will tell you where the nearest one is. But in general, doing these contracts will give you a lot of loot, and you'll be given like these rewards afterwards. And these are individual rewards, so you don't have to worry about people stealing your stuff, but these are highly worth it, and probably where some of the best stuff in the game you're going to get is going to come from. And obviously, doing a contract in a higher threat zone is going to net you a higher reward. Now, as you're playing, you may notice that there's just a bunch of like random little items that are going to be scattered throughout the world. I would ignore most of these, unless there's something specifically you really want to take. A lot of this stuff can be ignored. What you really want to keep in your rucksack are things like perks or ether tools or Ethereum crystals. Stuff that's a little bit high value that you get out of contracts are the stuff that you generally want to extract with. Otherwise, exfilling with any of these other little items are just going to get turned into XP at the end of the match, and it's not really a whole lot. So Otherwise, you can sell them for points or essence at buy stations, but it's not really worth your time. Speaking of which, if you want to, in between teammates, you can actually drop points for each other if somebody needs to pack a punch or buy perks or what have you. You can share points between your squad, which is a very helpful feature you'll definitely need to know. For a few helpful tips, the mercenaries in-game can be extremely annoying, but you can use the zombies against them if you like, because the zombies will also attack them, so just keep that in mind. Also, you can use things like these turrets against the abomination in the high threat zone. If you find a chip for it, you can activate the turret, and it's extremely effective in taking this down. These have ridiculous, ludicrous amounts of health, so these turrets are an absolute godsend if you actually want to be able to take them down and maybe get rewards from it as well. You can get some extremely powerful rewards from these, so it is very risky, but also worth taking down if you can manage to do so. Now, as far as exfilling goes, this actually has a couple things going on with it. Again, you can either choose to extract very early in the match, and you'll have plenty of opportunities to do so, but as the match goes on, you'll have less and less opportunities and locations for it. Eventually, there will be a final extract, and if you miss that one, then you're screwed. But a little helpful tip, if you just want to kill a lot of zombies at once, you can call in exfils and not get on the helicopter, and you'll get swarmed with hundreds of zombies that you can just farm again and again if you're doing a challenge that requires you to kill a lot of or a high amount of zombies. And so that is extremely helpful, probably one of the best things that I can tell you about this. I would also add that while it is very, easy to get high level loot and gear and even weapons inside of the highest threat zone, I wouldn't really approach this if you don't have the stamina perk. That is pretty much required to operate in here, otherwise you can run around without a weapon and have high speed as long as you just don't fight anything. But being in the high threat zone can be very challenging because the zombies obviously have a ton of health and move ridiculously quick. Movement there is more important than your weapons in a lot of cases, unless you're trying to actually kill something or take it down. And a few useful things you may want to know about the perks: Quick Revive does not restore your own health faster, but of course it revives your teammates significantly faster. It's almost a must-have. I think it's one of the most important perks in the whole game. Also, Death Perception. This perk will allow you to see mostly everything that's interactable through walls. So this means a lot of the cysts and spores that maybe are in this, infection zone. If you want to get these crates, it's extremely useful there. You can see other boxes and loot through walls and so on. Very, very powerful. Also, Speed Cola will help you plate up faster, which I cannot overstate the importance of that. Speed Cola, also one of the most busted perks in the whole game. Absolute godsend. And for you solo queuers, if your teammates or something happen to leave the game, you can also assimilate with other squads, and you can kind of form one big mega squad if you want to. Normal squads are only up to 3 players, so keep in mind it's not a typical 4-player game as Zombies usually is, but you can team up with other people in the game. Also, you can revive people and help them out even if they're not necessarily in your squad. When it comes to drops you might find in the game, like an insta-kill or a max ammo, these are only applicable to your squad. So you can maybe grab an insta-kill, but if you're around other people, that will not affect their weapons if they're not inside of your squad specifically. So just keep that in mind when it comes to the mechanics and how you interact with other people. But your main focus moment to moment should be acquiring items and upgrading yourself, and then doing your contracts and or story missions and challenges up in the top left. These will automatically update, so you don't need to go and reapply them in the menu. You can chew through as many as you can in a single game, but again, keep in mind that you should probably exfil with your stuff, and you also will not be chewing through all of these challenges in a single match. It's just physically not possible. Now, the way your story missions are going to work: after you complete Act 1, you'll be given a cutscene. After Act 2, you'll be given another cutscene. And in Act 3, you'll have a different set of missions, and there will be a giant boss fight at the end. That is essentially what you're working towards in this extract mode, and the core moment to moment is you getting items that will make the upgrades and your character strong enough to deal with these and complete said tasks and challenges. But right now, there is no Easter egg necessarily, but there will be one added in future seasons. However, you can think of these quests and the main story as the Easter egg that you can go after. But a lot of it will just be you figuring out how it feels in-game, interacting with your squad. And again, this is a much better experience co-op. While you can solo, absolutely, it is not recommended. I myself am a solo player, and I would like to if all possible, but I'm just going to let you know right now, it's not nearly as enjoyable as it is with co-op, either with randoms, but more specifically with friends. It's a much, much better experience. But that should be everything you need to know about Modern Warfare Zombies. I hope everything made sense, and I tried to explain this in the most easy way to understand. If you guys enjoyed, please drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you all in the next one. Have fun, and peace out.